up and said yes, we can. I said I wanna ride your nuts, cause I think you're the man. Now I'm dick riding.
Kagurabachi, that's what this video is about. This manga does a lot to distinguish itself as more than just dudes with swords, and has been a satisfying read thanks to its interesting plot, character writing, and art. You, dear viewers, voted for this review democratically, so I'm going to talk about Kagurabachi and what I think makes it unique. Before we proceed though, a little disclaimer. This video isn't meant to be some thesis about how my shonen is better than yours because your favorite thing is ultimately up to you. I say this because some of you fuckers wake up every morning just to fight over which manga you think is the best, like it's a custody battle over your firstborn child. If your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed and you're just here to comment that Scrimmy Bingus and the Crungy Spingus has better fight scenes without watching the video, I'm killing you. Kagurabachi is Takeru Hokuzono's first serialized manga. He had published a few one-shots before, but this was his first ongoing series, and is being published in Weekly Shonen Jump. I need you to understand for a minute how big and how difficult this is for a mangaka, because this is no easy feat. A lot of you newer anime and manga fans out there might have never even ventured outside of Shonen Jump or like Kodansha. In fact, most of you should die. I'm just kidding, welcome to the club. Go watch Cardcaptor Sakura. That said, it's a big leap between just making something and actually publishing it, and the stress only gets worse from there because once you put in all the work to get noticed by a big publisher, you have to keep this thing up and running for as long as you need to tell and wrap up a satisfying story, all while keeping your audience intact. I remember reading an article about Attack on Titan's creator Hajime Isayama saying at a convention panel, quote, "I would say 80% of manga is cancelled after 2 volumes, and you might not get the initial investment that you put into the story back." So to say there was a great deal of pressure on Hokuzono to make a good first impression is really underselling it. And when Kagurabachi quickly became one of the most viewed manga in Manga Plus within a week of its debut, I'd imagine the shock hit pretty hard. In an interview with Asahi, lovingly provided and translated by the Kagurabachi Brazil Twitter account, Hokuzono describes the experience as daunting to the point where creating each episode was intimidating, and like, holy shit, I can imagine. Within the first month, the manga already had over 1 million people viewing it, and that's just on Jump Plus. My unemployed ass was using Manga Dex. To put that into perspective, look how fucking microscopic this channel is right now. No, seriously, scroll down and laugh. If 1 million people found anything I made, I wouldn't care what they were saying. I'd preemptively treat myself to a nice dinner. And to top it all off, the initial feedback was probably super confusing. If you weren't around for the Kagurabachi debut, it originally got the Morbius treatment, where a bunch of people online were suddenly joking about it being the greatest work of art to ever grace mankind, which did lead to the more obnoxious shonen fans ignoring it, which is always a good thing, but that also meant that the only people who were left were basically just checking off the Jump manga list, or very sad Kagurabachi fans, which led to the formation of probably one of the tamest mainstream shonen fandoms to exist. Eventually, the whole Morbius thing did die out. People were earnestly talking about the manga, recommending it, making fan art. A bunch of fujoshis showed up at one point, and that's probably the reason we're doing numbers right now. But enough of that, let's get into the story first, because what many people were led to believe Kagurabachi was and what it actually turned out to be are completely different things. Initially, I wasn't sold that much on Kagurabachi. I'm already not in the target demographic for most shonen manga, seeing as I am a homosexual in my 20s. So when its first couple of chapters dropped on Viz's website, I took it for a pretty run-of-the-mill story about some edgelord teenager who kills people with a katana, and I couldn't have been more wrong about that. The story in Kagurabachi is almost deceptively simple. What starts as a seemingly basic revenge plot quickly evolves into something more intricate, and while I'm not going to go through every detail and summarize the entire plot for you, as I do want you to read this manga and experience it for yourself, there will be a few minor spoilers, so keep that in mind. The main character of this manga is Chihiro Rokuhira, the son of famous blacksmith Kunishige Rokuhira. Kunishige did this funny Oppenheimer thing and invented these civilian Melter 3000 ass weapons called the Enchanted Blades to put an end to the gruesome Seitei War. There are 7 of these, and while these do serve as a central plot element, I'd argue that an even more important element of the story is the legacy of Kunishige Rokuhira. In the first arc, we're introduced to a character named Sojo, who has a strong admiration for Kunishige, like saying he's deeply in love with him admiration. This is someone who's probably dedicated an uncomfortably parasocial amount of time to reading up on him, as well as climbing up the ranks of the criminal underworld to take possession of one of his blades, Cloud Gouger. He has some strong beliefs about what Kunishige would have wanted it to be used for. I mean, what is the purpose of the civilian melter 3000 if not to melt 3000 civilians? And this version of Kunishige that Sojo holds in high regard conflicts with the more pragmatic, nuanced father figure that Chihiro sees him as. And this conflict develops into this cool ideological clash that lays out the groundwork for what Kagurabachi is all about going forward. You know, this shit is super important too, because a depiction of these two chatting about this over tea is given equal importance as them actually trying to kill each other. Chapter 17 is fucking phenomenal, by the way. And as this manga progresses, Hokuzono consistently builds upon this idea while using it to draw a character out of the cast. It's a really rewarding experience, and in my opinion, one of Kagurabachi's greatest strengths. The character writing in this manga is fantastic. Chihiro as a protagonist might seem a little bland at first glance, but as the story proceeds, his interactions with other characters are what paint a better picture of who he is and what he's all about. Despite that one infamous panel about waking up in the morning with fresh hatred, he's a surprisingly selfless guy who cares for the people around him and is also pretty proactive in working towards his own goals. He's like that introverted guy who grew up being homeschooled and is probably a little shy because of that, but he's super cool, he buys you sunflower seeds, and he's honestly just chill as fuck, so you really enjoy having him around. Despite all the shit Chihiro's been through and all the internal struggles he has to make sense of, he makes a conscious effort to be a kind person, and there's a lot to respect in that. His goal of retrieving the enchanted blades, while kind of idealistic, is understandable from his perspective, and that perspective is challenged early on. There's still tools for killing people, as said by Kunishige himself, and they've definitely done that and some. There's still incredible creations that hold a lot of artistic and historical significance, on top of just being a way to connect to your deceased father. It's a complicated feeling involving sentimental value for something that can cause other people harm. It's like that one Ghibli film where the main character likes airplanes and has to deal with the fact that decades later a bunch of assholes are gonna ram them into the World Trade Center, or, I don't know, people who put sweetheart grips in their 1911s. The rest of the cast is also well written, and I think Hokuzono has a lot of talent for getting you invested in them. A good example of this is Hakuri. I think writing two characters who can relate to one another despite having incredibly different upbringings is impressive. Hakuri shows up in the second arc of the manga and acts as sort of a counterpart to Chihiro in that both of their lives are heavily affected by the actions of their fathers. They have a great dynamic, and history will remember them as good friends. There are other characters I want to talk about, but two of them are major spoilers. You may have already seen both of them though. One has a cool Zippo and the other guy can't even see you. But we can see it, at least I hope. Sorry to my blind audience, I'll put something cool on the screen. But not for long, because it's time to talk about art and style. In that interview I mentioned before, Hokuzono mentions that his one-shot Enten, which funny enough is the name of Chihiro's sword, was mainly inspired by Marvel and Naruto, especially Naruto. I mean, look at these two. These would continue to inspire him, but what would influence Kagurabachi's design and tone would be Western film directors like Quentin Tarantino, David Fincher, and Christopher Nolan. Hokuzono describes Kagurabachi's setting as this exaggerated version of Japan you'd see in Hollywood movies, and if you've seen Kill Bill Volume 1, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's really fucking cool. Characters dress like people you'd meet at a white-collar job, but like, cooler. I mean, even the nameless fodder is dripped out. The way black and white are used overall to emphasize things like lighting, blood, or character silhouettes also creates a unique visual style that I think looks really good on paper. There is so much black ink on this 2-page spread that Shonen Jump is shitting itself trying to print it on the cheapest paper they have, and I can't wait to see this in Volume 5's paperback. And the fights, of course, it's a shonen manga. What's the point of making a video about one if I'm not getting fired up over the action sequences? Actually, what's the point of making a video at all if I'm not financing a house off of fucking power scaling videos?
How do you power scale? Thank to Aries
Wait,
for
was
the
that
sponsored
Umi Neko?
video. Contrary to popular belief, but I am actually not a power scaler at all. I used to be when I first started, but I kind of got...
Is that fucking going on?
Could Goku beat Jesus Christ, son of God? I don't know. Who cares? Look at this cool spread of this guy getting his arm cut off. The fights are awesome. The way Hokuzono details motion through still poses conveys a lot of weight that gives fights a very fluid feel to them. And of course, there are the enchanted blades. There's Chihiro's iconic goldfish, Akka, Nishiki, and Kuro. Okay, it's not black Viz, okay? This panel is not good out of context. But beside that, they look really cool, and they all have their unique little abilities, and it's this combination of great art and storytelling that makes for some really cinematic moments that are fun to picture in your head and imagine moving in some far-off future anime adaptation. But who knows when that's gonna happen. Go read Kagurabachi. In the meantime, I'll be working on that next video. It'll either be Kurohyo or that one Uzumaki adaptation, depending on which one I feel like finishing first. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. There will be more dog shit on the way. Thank you for all your support. We did just reach 400 subscribers, and I'm sure everyone back at the Apple Orchard will be so excited to hear that I'm not a Fortune 500 CEO. Have a good one.